Two guys, same office, same job title, same exact paycheck landing in their accounts on the same Friday 5 years ago. Back then, you couldn't have told them apart on paper. Same rent, roughly, same car payment, same weekend plans, the same complaints about gas prices, the same jokes about payday feeling like it disappears the second it hits the account. Today, one of them owns his car outright, has a real down payment sitting untouched in savings, and just turned down a promotion because honestly, he doesn't need the extra stress or the extra money. The other one is still leasing, still counting down the days to payday, still one unexpected car repair away from a genuine problem. Nobody got a secret raise. Nobody inherited money from a wealthy relative. No lottery ticket, no lucky crypto trade, no side hustle that suddenly took off overnight and changed everything. They made the exact same income for 5 straight years. And somehow, one of them quietly became financially free, while the other one is still working just as hard, still hoping things loosen up, still standing in the same spot he started in. The gap between them wasn't really about how much either of them earned. It came down to one decision, made over and over, that had almost nothing to do with income at all. And once you understand what that one decision actually was, you won't be able to look at your own bank statement the same way again. Here's the decision. It's not complicated, and that's exactly why most people miss it. There's a definition of money that most of us were never really taught, popularized by the author Robert Kiyosaki in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Forget what an accountant would technically call an asset. Forget what shows up on a bank's list of your net worth. Kiyosaki's version is simpler, and it's built entirely around one question. Does this thing put money into your pocket, or does it take money out of your pocket? That's it. That's the whole test. An asset, by this definition, pays you. It's the rental property collecting rent every month, whether you show up to work or not. It's the dividend stock sending you a check on a schedule. It's the small business generating profit even on the days you're not there. A liability does the opposite. It pulls money out of your account, month after month, whether you use it or not. The car sitting in your driveway losing value with every mile. The credit card balance quietly collecting interest in the background. The subscriptions you forgot you even signed up for. Now that's not the official accounting definition. An accountant would technically call anything you own an asset, debt and all, no matter how much it costs you to keep. But Kiyosaki's cash flow version isn't trying to win an accounting exam. It's trying to explain something most accounting textbooks never bothered to. Why two people earning identical paychecks can end up standing in wildly different financial places years later. Because one of them is unconsciously buying liabilities and mistakenly calling them assets. The other one learned, at some point, to tell the difference. That's the decision from a few minutes ago. And it's smaller than you think. So if the test really is that simple, does it pay you or does it cost you? Why does almost everyone still get it backwards? Because assets tend to be boring. Liabilities are loud. Think about what actually happens in your brain when you buy something. A new car doesn't just get you from point A to point B. It gets noticed. Co-workers comment on it in the parking lot. It shows up in photos, tagged and liked. It tells a story about you, instantly the second you pull up. A dividend stock does none of that. Nobody's impressed by your brokerage statement. Nobody asks to see your rental property's cash flow at a party. That's the trap. Liabilities give you an immediate, visible signal that you're making it. Assets give you almost nothing to look at for months, sometimes years. Just a number quietly growing in an account you barely check anymore. One feels like progress. The other one just feels like waiting around. And humans are wired to chase the feeling, not the outcome. Status purchases hit fast. New phone, new outfit, upgraded apartment. And the dopamine shows up before the bill even does. Building real assets requires you to feel like nothing is happening for a long stretch of time before anything visible ever changes. So, it's not that people buying liabilities are careless or bad with money at all. Most of them are working just as hard as anyone else, if not harder. They're simply responding to a very real, very human pull toward the purchase that pays off immediately at attention, instead of the one that pays off slowly in ownership. The uncomfortable part is that both purchases can feel completely identical in the moment. Swiping the card feels the same either way. The real difference only shows up years later. In the two guys from the beginning of this video, same income, same swipe, wildly different outcome. One of them just kept steadily choosing invisible progress over visible progress over and over until eventually it wasn't invisible anymore. Here's where Kiyosaki's framework turns genuinely controversial, and it's worth sitting with because it touches the biggest purchase most people ever make. He argues your house is not an asset, not because it isn't valuable, and not because owning one is some kind of mistake, but because by his own cash flow test, a primary residence almost always takes money out of your pocket instead of putting money in. The mortgage, the property taxes, the homeowner's insurance, the roof that eventually needs replacing, all of it flows outward every single month. None of it flows back to you as income, unless you're renting out rooms or the entire place. Financial planners have pushed back on this hard, and it's worth hearing both sides instead of picking one and running with it. The counter-argument is real. A mortgage payment builds equity over time, which a rent payment never does. It's a forced savings account you're required to contribute to every month, whether you feel like it or not. Owning can absolutely make sense as a long-term financial decision, especially in a market where home values climb over decades. But Kiyosaki's actual point isn't that owning a home is a bad decision. It's narrower and more specific than that. It's that calling your house an asset in the same breath as a rental property or a stock portfolio blurs two completely different financial things. One generates ongoing income. The other generates a monthly bill, plus the hope that its resale value climbs someday down the road. That confusion is exactly what keeps the gap alive between the two coworkers from earlier. It's not that owning things is inherently the problem. It's mistaking a liability for an asset and quietly building your entire financial identity around that mix-up. Because your name is on a deed, while your monthly cash flow tells a very different story than the feeling does. The house isn't the villain here. The confusion between what feels secure and what actually pays you, that's the real villain, and it's a lot harder to spot. So if the house is the trap, what's the flip side? What do financially comfortable people actually buy instead, once they've made the switch? Nothing exotic at all. That's usually the biggest disappointment for people expecting a secret formula. The purchases tend to be almost boringly simple. They just share one thing in common. They generate income without requiring new labor every time a paycheck is needed. Dividend-paying stocks are one common version of this. You buy a small piece of a company, and as long as that company keeps performing well, it sends you a portion of its profits, usually every quarter, whether you personally did anything that week or not. It's not exciting to watch happen. It's also not dependent on your job title staying the same forever. Rental income works on a similar principle, just with a physical asset attached. A tenant's monthly payment covers the mortgage, and whatever's left over becomes income that shows up whether the owner is at their desk, on vacation, or fast asleep. It requires real upfront capital and real ongoing management. This isn't passive in the lazy sense people like to imagine. But the income itself isn't directly tied to trading more hours for more money. Small business ownership is the third common pattern, and it's the one people underestimate the most. A business that can keep running, even partially, without its owner being physically present every single hour, is functioning as a genuine asset in the truest sense. That's very different from a regular job, where income stops completely the moment the person stops showing up to work. None of these are guarantees, and none of them happen instantly. What they share is a single quiet threshold. The moment income stops depending entirely on hours worked and starts depending, even partly, on ownership instead. That threshold is where the two coworkers actually split apart. Not the moment either of them got a bigger paycheck, but the moment one of them quietly started building something that paid him without asking for more of his time in return. Here's the part that tends to surprise people the most, because it goes against nearly everything advertising has trained us to believe about what wealth actually looks like. Researchers Thomas Stanley and William Danko spent years actually studying millionaires directly, instead of guessing at their habits from the outside, and published their findings in the Millionaire Next Door. One of their most repeated findings was about cars, of all things. Fewer than 1 in 4 millionaires in their research owned a car from the current model year. Most weren't driving anything flashy at all. Plenty were behind the wheel of ordinary several-year-old vehicles, often paid for outright, with no loan attached and no lease payment eating into the monthly budget. That specific number tends to catch people off guard, since it directly contradicts the mental image most of us carry around. We picture wealth as new, shiny, and loud. The freshly leased luxury car in the driveway, the upgraded everything, the visible proof that someone's made it. But according to that same research, the people who'd actually built real, lasting net worth were often driving something you wouldn't look at twice in a parking lot. This is the versus moment really worth sitting with. It's not rich people versus poor people. It's wealth signaling versus actual wealth building, and the two frequently pull in completely opposite directions. The car that makes you look successful in the moment is often the exact same purchase quietly working against you ever becoming successful. And the boring, forgettable car sitting plainly in a driveway is sometimes parked outside the house of the person with the 7-figure net worth nobody at the office would ever guess belongs to them. None of this means new cars or any specific purchase are automatically the wrong choice for everyone in every situation. Spending patterns are personal, and individual circumstances differ widely. But the pattern itself is worth noticing and sitting with. What looks rich and what actually builds real wealth over time are frequently two entirely different purchases, wearing the exact same price tag on the sticker. Here's where all of this stops being theoretical and starts showing up in ways you can point to. Go back to the two co-workers from the beginning of this video. Nobody at their office throws a party when someone's net worth silently crosses a threshold. There's no announcement, no visible change at all, at least not right away. But somewhere behind the scenes, systems that don't care about job titles start responding differently. A bank evaluating a loan application isn't really looking at how nice someone's car looks sitting in the parking lot. It's looking at debt-to-income ratios, verifiable assets on paper, and cash flow that isn't already spoken for by payments on things steadily losing value. A landlord reviewing a rental application or a potential business partner considering a deal is often running some version of that same quiet math in the background. Whether or not either coworker even realizes they're being measured at all, this is the real status shift, and it rarely looks like what people expect going in. It's not louder respect from friends or flashier treatment in public. It's quieter access instead, the loan that gets approved without friction, the opportunity that opens because someone can actually afford to take a risk, the flexibility of not needing every paycheck already spent before it arrives. Meanwhile, the other coworker is still, by every visible measure, doing fine. Steady job, decent car, nice enough apartment. Nothing looks broken from the outside, not to him or to anyone else watching. But every door that quietly opens for the first coworker stays exactly the same width for the second one. Not smaller, just unchanged. While the actual gap between them keeps growing wider, in a direction neither of them can really see happening in real time. So, let's go back and answer the question we opened with. What did the first coworker actually do differently all those years ago that the second one didn't? Nothing dramatic. That's really the whole point of it. He didn't take some huge, risky leap. He just started running every purchase through one quiet question before swiping the card. Is this going to pay me back in some form? Or is it just going to look good for a while and then quietly cost me later? The car he kept driving, a couple of years longer than he probably wanted to. The extra money that went toward a small stake in a dividend fund instead of an upgraded apartment. The promotion he eventually turned down, not out of laziness, but because his income no longer depended entirely on trading more hours for more money. None of it looked impressive in the moment. None of it would have made a good photo for anyone to see. The other coworker wasn't reckless, and he wasn't bad with money either. He just kept answering that same quiet question the other way, purchase after purchase, without noticing there was even a question to answer in the first place. Same paycheck, same 5 years. Two totally different financial futures, built one small, forgettable decision at a time. That's really what this whole video comes down to. When you strip away everything else, it was never really about income. It was about which side of that one simple question your money keeps landing on, purchase after purchase, whether you're paying attention to it or not. So here's something worth sitting with today, right now, before you close this video. Think of one thing you own that quietly costs you money every single month, and drop it in the comments below. Naming it out loud is usually the first real step towards seeing it clearly. And if this kind of breakdown was genuinely useful to you, there's more of this coming. Real financial patterns explained without any of the usual hype. Stick around for the next one.